Awesome, 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 you guys. Let me first of all say I'm excited as always. You guys know me. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this moment, to this opportunity. Again, you guys, my name is Greg Cox. I am the Fatherhood Coalition Coordinator for Children Home and Aid. And this project came out of the West Side Chicago Fatherhood Coalition. And we decided that we wanted to do something and give back to the community. And Ron is part of the Father Advisory Committee. And that committee helps us understand what are some of the issues that some of the fathers having as it relates to relationship with their children, as it relates to what are some of the services that they need in the community. So I'm always excited. Thank you, sir. You are in the building, you and your daughter and your grandson. We ain't gonna leave him out. We're gonna include him in this.
Yes, thank you.
He is part of this discussion. So I'm excited.
Yes.
I'm excited. Thank you, sir, for joining us, you and your daughter. And as always, man, let us know. I know that this is educational and informational. And so give us something, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good evening, friends and family. My name is Ron Rainey, and I'm a man in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is that I have not had a drink or a drug in over 18 months.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. It's been a journey. I'll give you guys a brief overview. I've been in recovery, like I said, for 18 months. I've been clean and sober for 18 months. But prior to that, at 10 years old was when I started using drugs. A cocaine-laced marijuana cigarette at 10 years old was my first drug, which carried me through years and years of self-inflicted trauma. At 17 years old, I had a daughter. Her name was Shauniqua. I call her Shane. And shortly after that, I ran away to the military, leaving my children, abandoning my daughter, and carrying with me a drug addiction. And that took me to new depths, lowest of lows, culminating in 2013. I got a phone call from someone I'd never heard from before and didn't know who she was. And that was my daughter telling me that I had a daughter. At that point, still in my addiction, I attempted to make a connection, failed miserably, miserably failed.
Look at us now.
Did you say your daughter called you to remind you that you have a daughter? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
that was because I had abandoned her, and so she reminded me she was 16 years old, and called me, and that was when I met her.
Wow.
That was when I met her.
Okay.
And shortly after that, I hosed my marriage and decided to get my life together, and then tried to start that transition into rebuilding my relationship with my daughter. It was a wild ride, man. I was afraid. I was afraid for so many different reasons. Would she like me? Would she reject me? Would she accept me? Would she continue to judge me as on my past, or would she accept the new person that I was becoming and that I am? I was angry with myself for abandoning her. I was angry with myself for not knowing how to do things. My friends, my family, my brother, they had raised children. And so there were so many things that I just didn't know. So I was afraid, I was angry. And then, through the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and my sponsor and working the steps, I came to this place of acceptance where I just had to accept me for who I was, the skin that I was in, and the space that I was in at that moment. And things started to change. Our life, my life, became better, and it was easier. And I think this would be a great time to introduce an amazing young woman She is my princess and a queen in training. Shauniqua Brown, my daughter.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you guys for having me and allowing me to share my story. Ironically, my journey to this point in this relationship is not much different than his, as far as, you know, the inner work that I had to do to make it to this point, and for us to be able to have this amazing, brand new and fresh bond that we do have. Um, just as when we met, I also had a heap of stuff that I had to grapple with in order for us to get to this point. I had some residual resentment that I wasn't even aware of. I had, because you know, I want my relationship with with your parents so bad, and in the beginning, we hit a couple road bumps, and it made me realize that it was just like I was holding on to so much resentment and residual traumas from my own upbringing that I wasn't even aware of. And so I think that the first step for me to take was to begin to have these open-ended conversations with my dad, and grateful that he was open to it too. And so we were able to have conversations about how things ended up the way they were, and we were able to be objective about it and take away the emotional sentiments behind it, and just look at things in black and white. Look at his story of from when he was a child up until this point, and look at my story. And we were able to come to such an understanding of each other through looking at each other's stories objectively. And that was the freedom point for me. That was really when the chain broke, the fear melted away of being let down, or there's a fear of abandonment there. And so that chain really broke when I gained an understanding of how things were for him when he was a kid, and the steps that it took for him to get there. Everything just made so much sense to me. And so that was a big freedom point for me. I think that another milestone that coming to that realization pushed me to, it was, you know, when you come into meeting someone for the first time after so much time, you have so many fantasies and you glamorize everything, you know. And I had this Huxtable image in my head, and so when I wasn't met with what the Huxtables were, I was like, this kind of stinks. And so looking at things objectively and understanding his story, and I got any infants on the stream, any infants out there? So you guys really know the meaning of Sonder. I had a Sonder moment where I realized that you know, everything made sense. It did damage, but it made sense, and that freed me. And so it really did. It really did. It freed me so much.
Now here's what I was hearing too, is that you said you was talking about that I was working on me while he was working on him, but you didn't give him the benefit, or that it was okay for what you did, right? It's like, okay, because you do know this don't happen a lot. We still have some daughters and some sons who's disappointed with their parents, right? And so as you was talking, you know, you showed me, you showed us that, hey, look, he still got to be accountable, but I still had to do some work on me too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yep. I think that sometimes in the dynamics of parent to child, I feel like sometimes, and I was guilty of it too in the beginning, you have a sense of entitlement as a child. You feel like my parents should reach out, my parents should make the effort, my parents should organize and orchestrate and present to me these opportunities. And I feel like I feel like that's a dynamic that can be damaging to operate that way. And so what I did was I was able to, sorry, I got nervous.
That's okay. That's okay. Do you feel like some people are missing the opportunity because you guys created the space to be able to have this discussion or to build?
Yeah, exactly. We created those opportunities by being open with each other.
I had to be ready though also, because you brought up that word accountability. You know, there I couldn't go back to when she was 5. You know, the parenting and what it meant to be her parent, the role changed. So there was a lot of patience that I needed.
Yeah.
There was a lot of waiting. I told her, I said I wasn't there when you were young, but I'm
Yes.
here now, and when you're ready, I'll be prepared. And I
Mm.
had to move out and act on that, because it didn't matter how much I was ready. It was truly up to her. And whenever she cracked the door, I had to run through it like I was a linebacker, you know.
Yeah, but that
Wow, that
created
is
a
awesome.
safe space too.
That is awesome because it makes sense now, and especially when you talked about, Ron, that you had to take care of you, and then your maturity had to happen too. Shauniqua, you had to mature to a point where as though you had to begin to accept him. What helped you with that? What helped you? What did you do that helped you with that maturity to be able to accept your dad to come back into your life? What was it? Was it some people? Was it, what did you do, or what other resource that you use that says this is part of what helped me get to this point?
Well, the first thing was a whole lot of prayer. I spent a lot of time talking to God about, because I'm restoring this relationship and healing just like I know he could. I went to school for sociology. I went to Missouri State University and I took some race theory classes actually. And so understanding the in depth the history of my culture, that was real freeing too, to for me to be open with him. Once you go back generations and I saw what my culture evolved from and what the beginnings looked like, that also helped me to understand that, um, just to give some grace, to extend grace, because even in my own privilege that I stand in, having the advantages that I have had, I still struggle mentally and emotionally. So when I put myself in the footsteps of what came before me, it's easy for me to accept what's in front of me. You understand what I'm saying? It's easy for me to understand and wrap my mind around how things formed. And I just
Yeah,
just
it,
forgive, just give
it's
grace.
it's like knowing why you're here and taking advantage of the moment with why you're here and the
Exactly.
other information that you got at this point. So,
Hmm.
Ron, so tell us, man, so what are you doing to help you? Because we know that it's ongoing. We know
Right.
that it's an ongoing, a day at a time. I know for me with my sons, when I got into long-term recovery, I know there are some issues that they had, and we had to work through those issues. So what are you doing now that says, hey, look, this is the support? You mentioned the support towards their program, the support group. For those of you all that's online and you're not familiar with the Towards Their program, that's a program of support for people who are in recovery that need some support for ongoing long-term recovery. So tell us, man. So what else are you doing? What is you doing to we know you're giving back because it's what you're doing now. That's one thing.
Um, my sponsor always says things like the broader the base, the higher the pinnacle of freedom. And so I stay connected. I try to stay connected and in my recovery community, because it's in that community that I get my support. I have emotional issues. Things don't always go my way. So I need support in multiple aspects. I started young in my drug addiction, so there's a lot of maturing that I need, and it is through the men that I socialize with. My sponsor being one, and multiple other men and women as well. Help me. They are the shoulders that I lean on, and also the shoulders that I stand on to get to the next height. Without that support, because it's kind of like, if you want to learn how to bake a cake, you go to a baker. if I wanted to learn how to stay sober. So I started hanging out with people who had done it. And now that there's just next levels with, you know, just becoming a well-rounded human. So yeah, that's pretty much how I do it. I stay connected to my sober community.
One of the things you mentioned is about maturing, getting to a point where as though there's some maturity have to take place in me in order for me to continue to do what I'm doing, or to even admit and accept the fact that, hey, look, there was some damage that was caused because of selfishness and arrogance or whatever, drug addiction. I know for me, it was some hurt and some damage that was caused. And then being able to admit that, right, complete defeat, and said, I broke some, I tore up some relationships that now I need to, like your daughter said, need to have some grace from someone to give me some grace, right, to be able to move forward. So Shauniqua, same question for you. What are you doing now to continue your healing? Because from what I've heard from you is that at some point you had to really begin to heal, or do your healing, and not to have a heart of hardened heart, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so
sir.
now what are you doing now? What would you tell another daughter who having struggles with their father, who are drug addiction and haven't found recovery yet, or just early in recovery? Let's just say he's early in recovery. What would you tell her? What does she need to know right now?
I think that she should, I would tell her, I'm sorry, come here.
Okay.
I would give her the advice to really extend true grace. Say hi.
Hey. Hey.
Really extend true grace, because you already lost so much time, and there's so much more time that's ahead of you guys, and just to keep looking forward and extending grace, and remembering that before we were here, our parents were people who had gone through trauma themselves, and they, were in my journey through adulthood, with managing adulthood, it's hard. And so when I think about what my parents, both of them, lives looked like when the separation was going on, just extend grace and just understand that they were our age once too. And so everything that we struggle with, they did, and then they had an extra barrier as well with the addiction. So just extend grace, because in my adult life, it's good to have my father. He teaches me about cars. He tells me to get my tires changed and all of that stuff that I'm clueless about. It's good to have a support system, even navigating my own personal relationship. My father is a good person that I go and talk to, and he can give me advice, and it's just so worth it'll be uncomfortable in the beginning, but just through persistence and just true grace, it gets so much better, and it's so good.
So one of the things I want Constant, would you please drop that list of different treatment centers in the chat?
I did that.
Awesome. I want to open up the floor for any comments. If you have any questions you want to put in the chat, question in the chat, and I think they'll be okay with answering some questions right now. You guys will be okay with if there's a couple of questions. Is there any questions that anybody have right now of Ron and or his daughter at this point?
DJ, I'm sorry. You got a speed racer.
Okay. All right, someone have one. Dwight, one. Okay. Want to put it in the chat, or you want to?
Hello.
Hey, sir.
My question is to the young lady.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about being able to help other people, help other children to be able to experience reconnecting with their family members, fathers and mothers? Would you be willing to do something like that?
Yeah, I would be honored actually. I would be honored because I think it's important to have a relationship with your parents. I think it's extremely important just through understanding yourself and just they've been through so much. They got so much wisdom in there. Like just it's great. So I would be honored. That would be cool.
And the question also goes to Mr. Cox. Are you or do you have a program willing to put together a program to help that transition, to make that come into fruition?
Absolutely. We actually have another workshop, man, that's called Building a Winning Team. And it's a workshop that one of the facilitators facilitates online. And I definitely want to connect her with Ernestine Brown so that she can get some more information on her. So we do have a virtual group of women who are talking to one another and sharing and building a winning team, and how do they begin to build their relationship with other women. So absolutely, absolutely. Hey,
We
sir.
also have a couple of questions
Okay.
in the chat.
Okay.
How did you know you were at a point to reach out to your father, Shauniqua?
Okay, I'm sorry. 1 second. Let me
That's
shut
okay.
the baby's music off. DJ, can we go in this? You want to go over here? Come on, let's go this way.
Greg, I know it's been a
You have to-
while. Greg, I know it's been a while since we connected, but I think it's time for us to reconnect and do the MOUs and linkage agreements, so we can help out as much as possible.
Okay, both of
Okay,
these are for Shauniqua. The first one is, how did you know you were at a point to reach out to your father?
I just knew I was ready. When I was 16, I actually I reached out when I was a kid, but he was in Virginia. Yeah, so there was a barrier of states in between us. So it was kind of something that I knew I wanted. And so when I knew I was ready, when I was old enough to do it on my own without my mom. So when I didn't have someone holding me back from doing it, just because it was so much on my mind, I was just like, I could gain so much knowledge, so much closure, so much for real healing from taking these steps, or I could not. What do I lose if I don't? If I don't, then I'm going to be haunted my whole life. And if I do, something great can come out of it. So, you guys have any tips?
There's another one.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys have any tips on forgiving my father for the time we spent apart? That's the other question. And it would be, I guess, to both Ron and Shauniqua. Do you have any tips on this person forgiving their father for the time that they've spent apart?
Ooh, can I ask if if they have children of their own? No, of the person that's asking, do they have children of their own?
I don't have any clue.
Yes,
Yes,
I do. Okay. Once I became a parent, oh my goodness, it was so easy. It was so easy for me to forgive because, again, you have to think about the psychological standpoint that your father may have been in before the separation. And then now that I have my own kid and then their age, take into factors how they grew up. What was their home environment like? Was it a loving, comforting one that would nurture someone that would be ready? Those were all questions that I had to ask myself. And then once I had my son and I walked into parenthood clueless, it was uncomfortable. I had such bad mom guilt that, and I, like I said, I think I'm doing great in life, but just so much mentally comes with parenthood. I love my son to death, but again, you can wrap your mind around why. You just have to get to true understanding and true grace. It was easy. Once I realized how hard parenting really is, it's an extremely hard job that takes a lot to do.
Awesome.
It takes a lot to do. And so once I was given the task of it, and I realized how heavy it was, and then I take into consideration that my dad started doing drugs when he was 10. No offense, because I think he's a genius, but for a good chunk of your life, you mentally you were 10. You gave your mind away to a substance. You were robbed of your real free will of thinking and to make conscious and good decisions. And so once I realized how heavy it was, and then I considered what his mind state was, it was easy. And I
Awesome.
wanted it.
I think it's important. We're gonna be wrapping up soon, you guys. I think it's important for what you just talked about is maturing to a point where as though you understand that people go through challenges, and you mentioned earlier about trauma, the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences, the different traumas that we have too. And when you begin to accept people for their trauma, that they have their own traumas, and part of what they went through may have been while they treated people the way they did is because that's all they knew and that's all they had at that time.
Absolutely.
So that was amazing. So I want to begin to wind down and give you guys some closing words. There is one more question. Constance, you want to read that one and then we'll move on? And then.
Okay, there's actually two. No, I'm not muted. Okay. One of them is from Aiden Rainey. I just wanted to say how very proud I am of Ron and Shauniqua for the hard work they've already put into rebuilding their relationship. Love you both, B. The question was, what was the name of the father's program in Chicago?
The West Side Fatherhood Coalition, the West Side Fatherhood Coalition. And I am, you can email me at gcox@childrenhomeandaid.org. And Constance, if you don't have a problem, you put my email in the chat, and then we're gonna wind it up, you guys, because we actually didn't want to be too long. We wanted to make sure that we didn't spend too much time because we wanted to give everyone back their evening. Ron, in your closing words, in 1.2 minutes, give us some closing words or how you feel now, what it's like and what's next for you.
Life is good. Life is amazing now. I am still human, even though I like to parade around like I'm Superman, but I'm human. And I think that's important. It's for me to remember that. And what's next for me is I have no idea. The sky is the limit.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Sky is the limit.
Shauniqua, give us some closing words. Let us know what you're doing now and what's next for you.
Well, thank you guys. First, thank you guys for the opportunity. Thank you guys for extending another opportunity. That's a blessing, just falling in my lap. But right now I'm just working, being a mom, trying to navigate. I'm gonna keep on praying, keep on keeping on. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna turn it back over to Earl as we close out.